Hello and welcome everyone to another episode here on the Womb Whispers podcast. This is going to be all about menstrual art, a very spicy, a very juicy, a somewhat provocative topic. But I'm nonetheless very eager to explore this with my guest today. I am Lisa Jara. I'm a female health practitioner, a womb health practitioner for women and menstruating folks who experience struggles with their menstrual or perimenopausal health. And I'm also a confidant through challenging life transitions. And in that, I have found myself to be a holder of space for the dark and the taboo. And this topic, menstrual art, really is still a taboo topic. So I'm very grateful that I've got my guest with me today, Camilla Lovegrove, and we will be talking all about this. But before we dive into that, Camilla, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit to the people?
Thank you, Lisa. Yes, so my name is Camilla Lovegrove, and I'm a love, sex, and relationship coach and menstrual cycle mentor. And as Lisa said, we're going to be diving into this juicy topic of menstrual art or period painting, which is something that I'm really excited to explore. And my current theme, I find sometimes when we're doing this work, it's hard to define necessarily what we do, right? But at the moment, my focus is on bringing awareness back to the body, bringing connection back to our bodies as women, as cyclical beings, and using tools such as menstrual cycle awareness, that beautiful, simple act of just noticing what day we're on, what cycle day we're on, checking in with ourselves. And I'm sure we're going to do that in a minute together. And also this channel of pleasure, of receiving pleasure, of being able to hold pleasure in our nervous system, in our body, allowing ourselves to get comfortable with simple pleasures, even smelling flowers, getting the sun on your face. And these two powerful tools, menstrual cycle awareness and pleasure, I think brings this juicy element of deep connection to the human experience, this beautiful connection to ourselves, and by extension, connection to this beautiful planet that we all exist on. So that's my deep prayer, connecting back to Mother Earth at the end of the day. So yes, thank you for having me, Lisa.
And thank you for this little dip into the kind of work you do, because I found that our world is increasingly about titles and what's your title, what do you do, and then we state what we think is our title, but actually it's about the deeper stuff underneath all of that. And like that's how indigenous cultures speak. It's about like, what do you actually do in the world? What's your dream? What's your wish, your prayer, as you say, for this world? So I love this, the pleasure and the menstrual cycle awareness. So let's do that right now. A cycle check-in, meaning the day of your cycle that you're on, the phase of your cycle you're in, and 1, 2, or 3 words that describe how you are here today.
Thank you. So I am on day 28 of my cycle today, which is late autumn, in my opinion. So my cycles have been 28 to 30 days. So I'm just tipping into bleeding. I don't feel like I'm going to bleed today. And I suppose if I can think of a few words to describe how it feels to live in day 28 today in my body. I feel like there's a fracturing or like a stretching in my lower womb, and all the piece, my words and my brain aren't working in the same way as maybe my spring follicular phase time would be working. So I feel like I'm sort of drifting out to sea, but I'm also still present. That's the landscape of day 28.
I love it. That might mean that there are lots of juicy insights coming through, something deeper talking through you instead of just the brain. And I love those kinds of conversations.
Yes, we'll see.
And it also feels like a bit of a grounding energy to me, which I will happily tap into if you're willing to give some, because I'm on my day 10, which is right in the middle of my inner spring. And inner spring is a challenging phase for me. I usually battle some nervousness, anxiety, even like depressive moods. And that is all present to some degree today. And also, like, I'm sincerely looking forward to this conversation, and moments like these are something that can sustain me through the challenging times. So I'm grateful at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have permission to ground into I feel like in my womb, it's feeling very grounded. So we can co-regulate with each other. And yeah, I'm just feeling, as someone who also has experienced similar symptoms during springtime, I'm just sending you love, and also great that we're here together at the polar opposites of the cycle, which is so cool. So I'm really excited to see what's going to emerge today.
Yeah, and thank you for that permission. Co-regulation is a big thing. I think that's why we humans are social creatures. We need each other to do exactly that, to be held in whatever is present in the moment, with whatever feelings, thoughts, beliefs, emotions, and to be fully accepted as we are. So I just want to frame this topic today, menstrual art, period painting, again, a very provocative, polarizing topic, by saying that, like, me, myself, I do have a hard time wrapping my head around this concept that you could actually use menstrual blood to paint. It was in 2017 when I began my whole journey of understanding that our world and life is cyclical. We are cyclical beings, that just our society is set up in a linear fashion, striving for linear progress, and that this is not sustainable for us as beings. And with the understanding, I also realized, like, how disconnected we are from our menstruation, from our menstrual blood, especially also through institutionalized church, religions, different religions that proclaim everything down there is dirty. And that includes our menstrual blood. Like, I do have no problem, like, I personally do not have a problem when I cut my finger to see the blood, to wipe it away. Like, it feels clean to me. Yet the menstrual blood that comes out of me, that is the same blood. Even it might be even more life-giving blood, because it contains like stem cells and all of these beneficial qualities that you can use to fertilize plants, for example. Like, but that, to me, even now, 7 years later, still feels somewhat not sure. And believe me, 7 years ago, I would have said, I am never going to use my blood to do anything with it, to plant, to fertilize my plants. Yet here I am, 7 years later, doing my monthly ritual where I give some of my blood back to the earth as an offering, which feels like a very intimate and connective a ritual and practice, a bit like you said, the pleasure in it, because pleasure doesn't have to be sexual. It's these little moments of intimate connection to self. And even while I do that, right now, thinking of using that blood to put it on paper, let alone put it somewhere in my face or on my body, feels so far off. And that's exactly why I like to challenge myself to having these conversations, because I know this is not how it's meant to be. Like, we shouldn't be grossed out by our own blood. I mean, we don't all have to paint with it. That's for sure. It's okay. But we shouldn't feel grossed out by it. So just to say that I am coming from this, I'm intrigued by the idea of making menstrual art and that it could potentially be a practice which helps me connect even more deeply to myself and my body. Yet I have my hesitations, and I think this is a really cool place to come into or enter this conversation. And I would love to know a little bit more about you and your story and how you got to doing this and even leading workshops around this, because I could imagine that it hasn't always been easy for you either.
Yeah, so great. And I love that you name that. And I just want to pick up on something that you said that was, we shouldn't feel disgust around this. That should that comes in, right? Like, because I think we're also, you and I are both working in this field quite deeply. And so I think there's shame that can come up of thinking like, oh no, I should be more accepting of myself. I should be more loving of myself. I should do this X, Y, and Z. And I think there just needs to be a little compassion for ourselves. We've grown up in a society that it completely ignores menstruation, doesn't celebrate it at all. So doing this whole reclamation work, as part of the reclamation work, there has to be this sort of compassion for ourselves when things like disgust, shame, guilt, I should be better, I should be more open and accepting, because we haven't been fostered and cared and loved and nurtured in this. So it is big work and it brings up a lot of stuff for us. So I just want to say that to you as a sort of offering of a balm of, wherever you're at on your journey of reclaiming your menstrual blood, you're at the perfect place always. So, and to anyone who's listening as well.
Yeah, thank you for naming that. I do that sometimes, like, of course, shooting myself, but also portraying it as something like we should all. No, that's definitely not what I mean. So thank you for reflecting that back to me. And that, yes, I am like, I can at the same time feel intrigue and I can at the same time feel disgust and revulsion, and it's all okay. And like, I'm challenging myself today. How can I open the space for something else here, for a different relationship? Yeah, true.
And I love that, because that spark of curiosity, it's the flame that starts fanning. It's the fact that you can sit with all the things, disgust and the curiosity. And I think that is the key. That is the key, because a lot of people shut down at the disgust and they go, no, thank you. That's not for me. And that's fair enough. It's not for everyone. So yeah, I'm welcoming that spark of curiosity. And yeah, I'm feeling back into when this really started for me. And I remember clearly, it might be 4 years ago now. It was pandemic time. And I'd started to reclaim my blood as like this. I knew deep down that my blood was the key to my power, key to reclamation of my cycles. And I don't know where I'd read it. And I'd started engaging with Red School's work, which is eventually where I did my training with them a couple of years later. And it started, when you start reading things and things start to click and you go, aha, maybe, and start following the breadcrumbs. And I remember it was summertime, and I'd collected blood for the first time. Instead of, flushing it away or throwing it in the bin, I was like, I'm going to collect this blood and I'm going to go and offer it to the tree. There's this beautiful oak tree at the bottom of the garden, huge oak tree. And at the time, I was living with my best friend and my partner at the time. And I remember not telling them where I was going. And I felt this visceral fear, this like terror just in my whole body that I was going to be found out, that my partner was going to find me, that my best friend was going to find me and be like, what are you doing? But it was like fear as that I had never experienced before. I thought, wow, this is really deep. Like this is powerful stuff. So I remember just sort of doing a little offering and giving it to the tree and then kind of hush hush and ran away.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I became curious about that fear, and the fear felt bigger than me in so many ways. It felt collective, it felt ancestral. It was not just my fear that I was carrying, that this fear of, because ultimately what you're doing in that moment of offering your blood to the tree back to Mother Earth is a direct reverent connection prayer back to the earth, from my womb to Mother's womb, as an offering, as a thank you for caring for me. I'm now giving you a gift back. So the fact that this visceral fear that came through me, I think just sort of spoke to this disconnection that a lot of us human beings, whatever gender you are experiencing right now, internally with ourselves, with each other, and with Mother Earth. So my journey with painting started as a way of, I think it was a way of playfulness, as a way of curiosity. And it was something that was just for me. Like I wasn't showing anyone. I was just sort of connecting with my blood in this creative way, instead of it just being a, let me offer this blood to Mother Earth. And I don't really know if I consciously decided, but I decided for a year of my cycles. So I did 13 cycles, because we have 13 cycles in a year usually. I did a painting or several paintings each month as a sort of experiment. And then at the end of the year, I had this incredible tapestry of what was happening in my life at that time. And it was almost like a snapshot of all the events that unfold and unraveled. And during that particular year, I went through a huge amount of grief. I went through a very big breakup, end of my long-term relationship, went through physical health issues. And it was almost like the painting was a lifeline. It was like each time my cycle sort of blessed me again with my winter time, my bleeding time, it was like a respite from everything. And so I was able to channel that into the painting. And it's interesting, when I look back at them now, I still have them, the power that I receive from those images. And I think it's, people get into their head of like what it should look like. And I suppose the process that I do is I just channel. So it's almost like automatic painting, or there are sometimes, things that I paint that look like things. I would never say, I'm not a Leonardo da Vinci painter by any means, but you kind of have to get out of your inner critic mind and just flow with what's coming through. And they almost have this talismanic or totem quality to them. They're so much more than the painting, because they're holding the essence of what was happening at that time and what was being released for me during that time. And especially if any, and as we're human, you probably have gone through grief at some point in your life, whether that's death or losing a partner or whatever way. And I feel like the menstrual cycle is such a powerful returner for us. We keep coming around, and then grief is just the mother of all cycles. You know, it comes around and around and around, and each time it gets a little easier. And I just felt that you're sort of, with the menstrual cycle, you're this sort of cycle within the cycle, you know, like the cosmos, like when the storm is really hitting you during grief, to have those landings with your menstrual cycle, have the landings and the reprieve and the break from the grief from whilst you're bleeding is such a gift. Yeah.
Even though for some it might not seem like a gift,
Mm-hmm.
in the end, if we are open, or if we open ourselves up to the possibility, it can be a true gift. Even when you experience challenges, and I'm speaking from my own experience because I do still have period pain. And still, I see my period as a gift that comes every month, because it gives me the chance to sink back in, reconnect with deep, deep self, with deep, deep truth. And the way I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, is that when you're in that state, that's when you allow whatever wants to come through and use the blood on the paper in whatever shapes that want to come into existence. It's not like you go at it with, like, I want to paint, I don't know, a flower or something, but more like I put my blood on paper and then see what happens. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes. I think also, I didn't add to this, is dream time. You know, I think when we enter the cocoon of bleeding, and I think you can, maybe from the way I'm talking now, you can tell I'm slightly drifting in that direction. The dream quality. And we have this incredible, if we're present to it and we're open to it, we can have this incredible portal as we start to bleed and to start receiving images, music, sound. You know, I'm more visual, so I receive a lot of visual downloads, quite archetypal things that come through. So I might get an image of a deer or an owl or something like that. That's what comes through to me when I'm bleeding. And it's like what we said at the beginning of our conversation, you know, we're having a conversation with our womb, not our head. And it's that thing of, it doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to, look a certain way. It's just the kind of feeling and the archetypal journey, I think, of your cycle is something that I lean into a lot. You know, I allow that cocoon, that nesting time, the sort of, when the lights outside go, you know, dim, and your internal lights start to get bright, and you're really just with yourself. And sometimes I find that, you know, time really stretches during that. You know, you could be 5 minutes, but it feels like 5 hours. You know, you're in that really interesting liminal kind of, where time doesn't work in the same way. So yes, I think dream time with the painting it's deeply presencing. I think it's sort of, you know, being direct with your direct translation from, I mean, you can call it spirit world, other world, womb world, and bringing that into the physical, whether that's on paper or, I mean, we can go into this a bit more, or painting the body as your, you know, using yourself as your canvas.
Mm. The first thing I wanted to still ask is like, do you paint fresh from your vagina with your finger on the paper, or do you, I don't know, collect it and then use a brush? Do you add some water? How do you do it, or how have you seen clients or friends do it?
Great question. Practical question. Love it. So I generally use a moon cup if I'm heavy, if I'm sort of early days of my bleed, and I will just store it in like a glass jar and just put it in the fridge. Sometimes, you know, if I'm just like, I've literally just bleeding and I'm just like anointing myself, I will just take blood directly from my vagina and just like anoint my forehead or something like that. It's just like a mark of, oh, I'm bleeding and I'm, you know, I'm here and I'm special. Take notice. And then I mean, I then just use if I'm painting, I would just use a paintbrush for, I mean, you can use your fingers too. I mean, it's just, it's whatever you want to do, but a paintbrush if I'm doing on like watercolor paper, or if I'm painting myself, I would just use fingers. Because I just feel it makes more sense just to kind of, there's a more kind of primal aspect of that, I think, as well, just like the touch and the connection. And in workshops, I've had an array of really inventive ways of doing it. So I have some people who come to my workshop who aren't bleeding, you know, who are post-menopause, and but they still want to connect to the energy of the blood, the energy of the experience of bleeding. And so what they often did was come up with inventive ways. So I had someone use ash from the fire, like they lit a ceremonial fire, and then used the ash from that and mixed it with water. I had another person use clay, you know, from the earth, and then mix that with water. And then sometimes, you know, I have people who are cycling, but they don't have blood because, you know, they're at certain points in their cycle. And again, you know, using things like red wine or food coloring, or, you know, and I find that really interesting because you're not actually using the blood, but you're still connecting and you're still energetically connecting with it. So it is really fascinating to me that we can do that. You know, we can still receive the work and we can still find meaning, and it's accessible to anyone if they want it, basically. Yeah.
It's the intention that matters, as always.
Exactly. Yes.
Oh, I love it. I would have asked that question if you hadn't come up with it just now, but like, what do you do when you are post-menopause and still want to have that experience? Because for the ceremony that I do, the rite of the womb that I'm nurturing and then give my blood back to the earth every bleed, for those post-menopause or without reproductive organs, I suggest to use some red wine and pour it over the earth. And so, yes, that has this lovely red color, and you can use it to paint as well. It's so cool. Like, it's, again, there are no limits. Whatever works for you, whatever you feel connected to, and like even some cycles it may be one thing, and in a different cycle it may be something else. And just listening to this aspect of what wants to come through.
Yes, exactly.
Invitation.
Yeah.
And that is also a very practical thing, that you say, hey, I host these workshops and some people might not be in their bleed at that moment and they can still participate, and maybe like I am touching on your grounded energy today, they can touch into and lean on other people's energy who are in that space at that moment of the workshop. And that is this like this collective aspect, because through our blood we're not just connected to ourselves. Through our blood we are also connected to our ancestors, because we come from their blood. we have been born through their blood or their fire, if we take the ash.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think this is what's so powerful about this work, is it is universal. It is a connected web and lineage and line and thread that takes us back to the very first bleeding being on this earth, you know, and we are connected through the red thread. We are connected to the bloodline of this. And I can just feel it in my whole system right now, but just the energy and the ripple effect that it has as we start to reclaim this really sacred part of ourselves and really take it seriously, you know, like, wow, what a gift, you know, we're given. And what I love about having different options for people if they don't have access to blood is it's inclusive, but I think it just shows you that it's never too late. Like, it's never too late to reclaim this for yourself. There's always, as long as you have breath in your body, there is always time. There is always time to reclaim these really potent, holy parts of yourselves. And I'd like to just mention some of my elders who I connect and worked with during my training at Red School. And I met these incredible women who were postmenopausal and had never cycled because they were on birth control their whole cycle. And the fact that they were prepared at that stage of their life to say, actually, I'm going to go and reclaim my menarche self, you know, the young girl who started bleeding. I'm going to go revisit her when I'm now postmenopausal. And I'm going to make this holy experience of connecting back to my blood that I never got during my lifetime. But I'm going back. And I thought, wow, if someone could be that brave and reclaim something, because I can feel it in my body right now, like the grief of having gone through that and then being like, oh, wow, that whole part of my life is gone, but I'm still willing to go back and heal that part. I just think the gratitude I have for the bravery of those people who are able to go and face that. And it also makes me think, gosh, I'm so grateful that I'm in this part of my cycle journey where I'm able to reclaim these parts now, and I don't have to do that later. But yeah, just a beautiful invitation that it's never too late to do this work, ever.
I love it. Thank you for saying that. My brain, for some reason, is wondering about this very practical question, like, isn't it smelly? I just think that could be a very valid question anyone who has never done it will think about.
Such a great question. Yes. My short answer to your question is yes, it smells. And I think this ties in really beautifully to the beginning of our conversation around disgust, because it is a visceral experience when we come in touch with our blood. So I would say, you know, fresh blood to me doesn't smell. Obviously, the more aged the blood is, the more potent the smell will be. And I still have experiences now where, you know, if I'm doing like a full body paint and, you know, the blood will dry and it will get like crack, you know, you get like flaky cracked blood and the kind of smell. And sometimes I'm like, ew, this is gross. You know, what am I doing? Like the kind of smell. And I think it's this practice that an invitation into being comfortable with the uncomfortable, for being, you know, we're so sanitized now as human beings. We have, you know, all the fresh soaps, all the deodorants, you know, we rarely meet people who are generally like smelly. And when they are, we really notice it. Right. And so getting comfortable and in tune with these kind of like human body functions, and not just from a period blood perspective, but like, are you comfortable with your own bowel movements? Are you comfortable with your urine? Are you comfortable with the smell of your BO? All of these things. It's a very humanizing experience, I think. And I think we like to push away our humanness in many ways, and the animal of our body. And yeah, we like to be, perfumed and all of these kind of things. So what would it be like to, yes, it's smelly, but is that necessarily a bad thing? It's sort of, it's that kind of thing. And I also think there is a natural reason why that we feel disgust around the smell of the blood, because, realistically, you're not meant to be keeping hold of your blood, in terms of you're not meant to be, because then it becomes stagnant, and stagnancy in any form of nature is not good. We need the rivers flowing. We need the energy flowing. So once we have stagnancy, it is actually a healthy reaction for us to go, actually, no, we don't need that. We can wash that away. And also, if we, from a physical hygiene perspective, if we're not actually washing away the dried blood when we're bleeding, it's actually, and this is what I learned from Aurora, from Pelvic Priestess. She taught me that dried blood has like a histamine in it. So it's actually like it makes us itchy and uncomfortable. So it's our body actually trying to cleanse and clean. So I think there's two things here. I think, yes, it is a bit smelly at times. And can we hold the discomfort and the disgust? And it's smelly because it's meant to be, it's not meant to be hanging around the whole time. We're meant to wash it. We're meant to release it. We're meant to let it go. And so whenever I'm really doing practices with my blood, I kind of paint with it fresh. I wouldn't leave it that long unless I was keeping it for a specific ritual purpose, in which case I may not be painting with it, but I might be offering the blood. But generally speaking, if I'm doing painting, especially on my body, it's usually immediate. So I'm like, okay, I've got the blood. I'm now going to go paint my face. And then I wash, after, wash it off. So yeah, it's an interesting question though. Thank you for bringing that one.
Yeah, and it's a really good point, because when you were talking about, and then you've got the blood all over and it's starting to become smelly. And yes, there, like, I could in myself feel there was a bit of disgust, but there was also something more deeply powerful in staying in this smelliness, because it's provocative to modern day society. That is the taboo we're breaking. The cleanliness and dehumanizing nature of a lot of things in society is like really getting back in touch with, again, the primal aspect that you talked about, the primal aspect of ourselves, that this is how we smell. Like that this is something, like, it's even hard to put into words, but this power that comes from, yes, I'm smelly. Society, figure that.
Yeah.
And I wonder if, that is really just, I wonder if there is a difference in perception for women and people socialized as women versus men and people socialized as men in the society. Because I dare say, especially for women and people socialized as women, there is this, or people read as women even, is this, like, they need to be clean and orderly and smelling nicely and all of this. So we have kind of inherited this idea that we need to smell nice and clean at all times. And that's just not the case.
Yeah. And also, yeah, I definitely think there is a kind of gendered perspective on smelling, because, having grown up with brothers and been around boys, like their level of cleanliness is not always up to scratch, right?
Yeah.
You kind of let them get away with it. But there's this, this sort of this standard that's held
Yeah.
for women and socialized as women, that I think is really interesting. And, you know, and also we forget sometimes on a very basic level, and I'm just kind of, you know, in terms of if you're on birth control, interfering with your pheromones and the smells that you're giving off,
Mm-hmm.
and the attraction level between people, it's interesting because actually on a very fundamental level, we are animals, and smell is a really important part of attraction, of stranger danger. Like, we know, we just don't, I think we're so reliant on our other senses, and we're taught to be reliant on other senses.
Mm-hmm.
We don't actually think about smell so much.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I'm very sensitive to smell, so I can't wear perfume, I can't wear strong deodorants, things like that. And I, you know, I live in London, and people will run past me, you know, like they're jogging,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll like get a hit of their smell.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, I know, you know, it's like I'm now getting like an identity hit of that person.
Mm-hmm.
And I take it, and you know, I've been noticing it more and more. I'm like, these smells, and smell is such a primal
Mm-hmm.
aspect of our nervous system and how things work. So I think it is, yeah, such an interesting topic to go into around this. But yeah, having this kind of provocative attitude of like, and the thing is, I think when you're putting, let's say, when you're putting blood on yourself, it is an incredibly powerful thing to do. Like, it's like you're getting ready for war, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
You're putting on your tribal paint, you know, you're like, I'm good to, you know, and you feel like no one's gonna mess with you. Like, could you imagine if someone walked in your bedroom and you were just like, you know,
Yeah.
all the paint on your face, and you were like, look like Lilith, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
there's this power that's there. And yes, the act of painting, the ceremony of painting, the ritual of painting taps into us, into this, yeah, grounded power of just like, I am here, I am part of the earth, I'm not going anywhere, I'm solid, I am of the earth. And it just taps into this energy that is so much bigger than us, you know, this like collective, like, I am a warrior, I am here to fight for what is right, you know, I am, and whatever that is to you, I'm not rallying around a particular ideology, but whatever that is, your personal, your collective feeling of, because I think there is this, you know, we're at this tipping point in society, in our communities, in our world of, we need you to be the warrior, we need you to be the goddess, you know, the energy, the powerful, because we're just desperate for it, we need it. So reclaiming that can be powerful for yourself, but don't underestimate the collective ripple effects that has, even when you're doing something privately in your bedroom at home, and you don't have to tell a soul.
Yeah.
You don't know what the ripple effects are, the energetic ripple effects, and it will be making a difference. The more we reclaim ourselves, the more we love our bodies, the more we love our body systems, the better everything will be. I mean, that's just my personal opinion.
I second that. I can only say wholeheartedly, yes, yes, and yes, we need you in your power. And we are talking here about this inner power, this power that comes from within, because when you are in your power and reclaiming this, that you have power of choice at all times to some degree, then you want others to have their own power as well. So, and that's how it ripples out. It's not because you then have power over others, it's because you showing up in your own power, even if no one knows where it comes from, that it comes from you painting yourself with your blood in your own room, but you will ooze the sense of, I am this person, and this person's good, I like who I am, and therefore I want you to be who you are as well. So it's the sovereignty that allows others to become their sovereign self as well. That is how we change the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's such a power. And, you know, I think the more and more I love and accept myself, the more, exactly you say, like the more and more you want your friends, your family, you know, your community, and like, oh, the power and the ripple effect and the agency and the sovereignty, like you said, from these practices is powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to just mention one more thing about the smell. I remember I worked with a client once who had been through her own journey of trying to become pregnant and then it working and then miscarrying and then not having a period for a while and like feeling out of touch with herself and her body. And we did this rite of the womb ceremony. And like a week later, she started bleeding again. And she was over the moon that it had come back. And she said, I even love the smell of my blood. It doesn't smell nice. I can't even explain what it smells like, but it is my smell. That speaks to what you said. It's this primal sense that we have. The what's it called? That goes into your nose. The sense. Well, the smelling sense anyway.
Yeah.
But it goes right into your brain stem and calls forth memories.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. I can't remember, but that's why it's one of our most powerful senses, because it can jog memories. It can, you know, I remember when I was studying for my exams, you know, they would say, oh, smell something whilst you're learning, and then smell it in the exam, and you'll remember everything.
Olfactory sense.
Yes, there we go. Well done. Yeah, so it is one, and when I'm guiding clients through 5 senses reality, so when we're visioning and going into experiences, you know, it's easy for them to connect to sight, to hearing, to touch, but it's more difficult for the taste and the smell. And because those are both the ones that are most connected to, I think, our limbic system. I need to get up on my neuroscience. But it's usually the hardest part. But once you kind of crack that and you're into it, things become richer and brighter and easier to access. So yeah, getting acquainted. I'll just be curious. To whoever's listening, you know, go, if you're walking down the street, just like make a conscious note of people's smell, you know, and just, it's that kind of, I think as we draw awareness to it, it becomes easier and easier for us to access it as a sense. Yeah.
Yeah, like everything, when we put our awareness to it, it becomes easier and more familiar. And yeah, I guess it's because we have been so heavily colonized, as in separating from our bodies, that we are separating from our primal instincts. And those, as you say, yes, it's connected to the limbic system. It's connected to smell and taste, which were the primary factors to, like, even in animals, that's usually how they orient in the world. They don't always use their eyes. And like eyes can be your eyes can be misled.
Absolutely.
But your taste and your smelling sense, not so much.
Yeah.
And so like it's another reclamation there with our primal self and our primal power. That's just amazing. Just a very last question is, like, when you say of using your body as a canvas, do you also just smear it somewhere? Do you let your intuition guide you? How do you approach that?
Yeah, I think just using your intuition, and what I think we mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, that, you know, menstrual blood has stem cells in it. It's got this incredible technology in our blood. And do you know what? And I thought about this the other day. I was like, it won't be long until they're packaging and selling it for skincare.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
So
that
get
was
on
my
it
thought
before they
too.
start doing that, and I was just, they already do a whole bunch of crazy things like injecting blood into the face and things, and try, so you've got your free skincare every month. So I often just actually just give myself like a full face facial sometimes, and then I sometimes draw symbols, whatever's coming to me. There's not really anything that I taste my blood as well, which is like I guess we haven't really ventured into that, but like tasting your blood and like feeling like the experience of that. And I think really for me when I'm in it, and we've already touched on this, it's like a warrior preparing, for war. Like, how you would imagine like Boudica, or I don't know, the Vikings, like they would get ready for war. And it's that kind of, again, that primal instinct. So I don't think too much about it. I certainly don't do it to look a certain way. And only, now I've started to bring this work more into the public sphere. Now I start posting this stuff online. But before that, it was very private for me. I wouldn't. And when I did share the work, it was with people who I knew were very accepting and loving and caring. And I think if you are on that journey, and I definitely would say that you don't have to do what I do, right? I'm not. You can do as little or as much as you like. Just my particular path right now is going to war with it, essentially, and stepping out into the public sphere and posting on social media around, with a face full of blood can be quite daunting for people. So I'm not suggesting doing that. Do what you want to do, as little or as much as that feels comfortable.
Maybe starting with 1 drop on the forehead to anoint yourself, and that's it. And just see how that feels. Take in the whole experience, because I think that's what I got from you now. Like, it's about the experience of sensing your blood, of tasting your blood, of smelling your blood, and just connecting to it in whatever way works for you as a first step. Again, however much, however little. And just see what comes up, and being with the disgust or with the pleasure or with the intimacy or whatever it is that arises from it.
Absolutely.
Summary?
Yeah, it's a great summary. And I would say, if you are, I think that's a great invitation to do the anointing on the forehead, on the third eye, because it's really connecting you to the power of your visioning at that time, as you're bleeding, as we spoke at the beginning of this conversation of dream time, womb time, and, having that direct connection to third eye with the blood is really beautiful. So I think that's a really wonderful invitation. And I've just lost my train of thought. It's clearly day 28 brain. It's kicking in. But yes.
No problem. That is welcome too.
Yeah.
But you definitely have intrigued me even more. And I am for sure going to try this out next time I bleed. Even just using my fingers and anoint. I will try the anointing thing. And we need you doing this open thing as you described, which is for you right now the next step to show this blood warrior self. We need people like you to make it easier for people like me to be accepting of it, because when I see someone else do it, I don't take it as an you must do it like but I take it as an, oh, that's a possibility. There is something that I can start leaning into and just try. And that's why I'm grateful that you are doing it out in the open. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that. And I think, what we're touching on is like that permission giving. It doesn't have to look a certain way, but it's just like someone's a little bit further down the path and they're going, it's okay, keep coming, it's that little invitation. And I certainly had that, I had people who I was following online who were doing this before me,
Yeah.
and when I didn't even consider, when, like I described at the beginning of this conversation, that terror that I had of like, oh my God, I'm going to be burnt at the stake if someone finds me, and now, here I am a few years later having this conversation with you, talking about it publicly. So I'm grateful to those people, the way showers that were in my field to get to where I am now. So yeah, we all lift each other up. We all give each other a helping hand, don't we?
We do. And if someone wants you to be their way shower, either in a personal coaching or in a workshop like this or in a ritual space, where can they find you? How can they contact you? What's your preferred way of getting in touch and staying connected with people?
Great question. So you can find me, I'm on Instagram at the Camilla Lovegrove, at the Camilla Lovegrove. I'll have my own website, which is camillalovegrove.com. And you can connect to me there. I've got an email address there, or you can just DM me on Instagram. I'm on there quite a lot. I show up quite regularly doing regular cycle check-ins as a sort of daily practice. So I really enjoy connecting with you there as well. So I'm doing one-to-one work with clients. I have a waiting list at the moment, which you can hop on, and that is to do around cyclical awareness, pleasure, self-pleasure as an exploration of a desire to come back to our bodies, to connect, to feel that self-love, that self-acceptance. And so really just, wow, to be alive and to be human at this time, the magic of receiving pleasure and being able to talk about these incredible topics like we've done today. Like, I'm just so grateful that we're living in this time where we can start to do this. So that's where you can connect with me. And I'd love for you to come and see me, connect with me.
Perfect. I will leave all the links below, of course, because I want people to get in touch with you and reclaim, like, see you as an example, as a role model, not to imitate, but to show what's possible, to then find their own way.
Absolutely.
Do you have a few last words or a message that you want to leave the audience with?
Just that my womb feels so full having this conversation with you, Lisa. And I've really enjoyed our time together today. And I'm just excited. I hope that, maybe there's just one person who listens to this and they think, oh, maybe I'll give that a go. So I'm really excited and grateful to be able to do this work. And yeah, I feel that I also actually, the last thing I will say is we've spoken about disgust, guilt, shame, these topics, but I also want to just touch on joy and how this can be a really joyful experience as well. And one of my favorite ritual paintings was during my menarche ceremony. So this was a ceremony I did when I was 29 years old. So menarche is the time when you first start bleeding. And I never got one, a ritual. And there's a lot of things going on in my life at that time. And so I had a reclamation ceremony and I brought my blood and I painted myself. And the joy that I felt in that moment and the kind of tears of gratitude and the tears of joy, it was such a golden experience. It touched on something lighthearted, something innocent, something really pure, and something that was wholly mine in that moment. And so, yeah, I'm going to end on that note that joy is also very much possible in this reclamation.
Thank you for that reminder.
Thank
you for being here. Thank you for stepping out there, being the way shower, having this conversation with me. I truly, truly appreciate it and appreciate you and appreciate your work. And yeah, everyone else, we would love to hear from you. We would love to hear your insights, what you're taking away. If you are willing to try the anointing practice or not yet, which is fine. Anything that's coming up, please get in touch. Let us know in the comments. If there are comments around, send us an email, get in touch on Instagram. We would love to hear from you. And until we hear from each other again, have a beautiful day and much love. Bye.
Bye.